Okay, so I'm finally getting around to part three of that last series about the nanotechnology swarms and the programmable matter, and how all of this technology relates to many of these, quote, paranormal phenomena like shape-shifting cryptids, or there's the sentient mist, the fog. There's even the walking trees. There are claims of immortals or vampires that have lived throughout the ages that have both of these qualities. They seem to be some form of beta test back in the Dark Ages on immortality and alchemy and that type of thing, but they also seem to have these shape-shifting qualities. Like Michael Crichton's book Prey talks about these nano-swarms that are predators. But let me actually, this is probably a better copy because you can see here it's shaping into the formation of a man, which is what his book Prey talks about. These nanoswarms become very dense and basically materialize. It's what we would call materialization when we see these ghosts or demons or shadow people that materialize from like a black mist in the corner of the room and that type of thing. Well, in Michael Crichton's book Prey, he talks about these nanoswarms being able to get very dense, condense down, and materialize into basically doppelgangers. They could pretend to be people. So this is actually the third part to that series right here. The Archon invasion, New World Order, parasites right here. This is your brain on parasites, talking about these nanotechnologies. And then the part two to that was here, the secret space program, Vril, parasites, shadow people, and nano possession. So I had said at the end of that one that I was going to take all the clips that were like the high strangeness about cryptids and that type of thing, and I was going to put them all together in one sort of cryptid video with the clips. So that's what this is right here. But that is a 6.5 hour series. So if you haven't seen that and you still want to watch this video about cryptids and the sentient mist and all of that, let me distill it in like 60 seconds. So right here on the screen, we have a clip from Rice University. I've shown this several times before.
Nanomachines for several years, particularly nano cars, which we've made previously, where we had 4 wheels and a chassis, and then we built motorized nano cars that had these little motors that could push them along a surface. And more recently, what we did is we built something analogous to a nano submarine, where we could have the motor rotate when we shine a light on it, and the motor rotates at 2 to 3 million rotations per second when a light shines on it, and we could propel it in solution. Now, these molecular motors and the molecular nanomachines are really quite small. We can park about 50,000 of them across the diameter of a human hair. And so what we've done in this study is we've shown that we can drill into cells, human cells or animal cells, we can drill into them using these nanomachines. So the nanomachines will attach to the surface, and then a light will be shown upon them, and they will drill right into the cell.
Okay, let me break in here just for a second. I want to play some more of that clip, but I'm trying to distill 5 years of research and deleted videos from my deleted YouTube channel in like 5 minutes. So what he just said about these molecular nanomachines being able to drill into cells and all of this and deliver a payload and all of this type of thing, he's basically giving the exact definition of what we are told are, quote, viruses, right? Like here on the screen, this is a bacteriophage. And phage medicine is old, this is old school stuff. This has been around a long time. And you can see clearly these are molecular nanomachines. These aren't viruses. These are engineered robots, drones on a tiny, tiny scale. They're not something left over from evolution that are just floating around carrying these tiny pieces of DNA or whatever their payload is. No, none of it is happenstance. We've been lied to. What he is describing, these molecular nanomachines that they made in a lab, is precisely what we've been told are viruses. Now, the bacteriophage is the one that I always use because it's the only one that has ever actually been seen under an electron microscope. We know about the viral isolates, and the big discussion now scientifically is, do viruses even exist? Have they ever been isolated? Is this science sound? And the general consensus is no, no, because they haven't been able to see them, to actually see them. They have these markers that let them know they're there and all that, and we reinterpret that science just based on the science. And this bacteriophage I always pick because this one was actually distilled in the centrifuges and was seen under the electron microscope. There are several images of it. So, and it clearly is a tiny robot that is drilling into a cell. Okay, back to the clip.
And what allows us you to see in the video that there are two cells which are having surrounded by these nanomachines. So when you look at the cells, you see this wonderful green network, which is the mitochondrial network, and the UV excitation. And this ultraviolet light actually also excites the nanomachine. So as we see the video, these nanomachines are drilling to the cell, drilling small holes, allowing this propidium iodide to get incorporated into the cells that binds to the fragmented DNAs, which is one of the signs of necrotic cell death, which means there's no point in turning back. The cell is already dead.
But the takeaway is that this little robot is so small that 50,000 of these nanobots can fit across the width of a human hair. So they're invisible. I mean, they are invisible to the naked eye. It's that simple. And I know that's where a lot of people aren't thinking. We think about drones when we think about military projects and them using drones and technologies. We always think bigger drones. We need, not little drones like you can buy on Amazon. The military needs bigger drones. But really what they've done is smaller drones, smaller robots, nanobots. And the predictive programming that we chose to talk about this concept in Michael Crichton's book Prey, he talks about that groups of these tiny nanobots can all answer to one hive mind. They can all be part of one larger organism, and they can be programmed that way so that they travel in literal swarms or hives. So it all has to do with density. When they're not condensed and they're spread out, they're essentially invisible. You can run your hand right through the swarm and you won't even see it. But as they start to compact together to form whatever the AI is programming them, beaming into them to shapeshift into, then they become solid objects. So the second major takeaway from that Rice University clip is how they kept saying that these nanomachines are controlled by light frequencies. So this video that I have on the screen, we talked about that, the sun simulator and the Wi-Fi to Li-Fi and the 5G and the AI smart cities, that this infrastructure that links in to the nanotechnology is being set up all around us. Of course, the propaganda narrative that they use to push this is sustainable cities, right? So they are not just putting up the 5G towers, they are putting this Li-Fi LED system into the streetlights, into all of everything you have. And even if you throw away all of your devices, it's still going to be like here, it shows in an office or a library or wherever, the LED bulbs will be beaming it over you. So if you have this nanotechnology in you, and we all do, we've done the spit tests and, for years, for 10 years, way more than that. We were talking about Morgellons and all of these other health effects of them dispersing this nano everywhere. So anyway, if you throw away all your devices, they're still going to be able to detect you through these smart cities. And actually detecting you is the least of your worries because like they just said at Rice University, these nanotechnologies, these nanomachines they created, they encircled the cells and penetrated them and killed them. So these technologies can be used to kill cells in your body. They can be used to kill you. And again, I'm not going to do it all here. We've put several clips of that in all the past videos of people being hit with a frequency from their cell phone and they go into a heart attack right there. Or the guy riding along on his bike and the frequency hits, and it was clearly a frequency because it caused interference on the CCTV, on the security cameras at the exact moment. Then boom, he gets hit with the frequency, falls right off his bike. So this is no joke. In fact, later tonight, I think I'll dig up this old video about the sun simulator and the Wi-Fi to Li-Fi. I think I'll dig this up and I'll re-upload it, because you can see I uploaded this like 3 years ago before my YouTube channel was deleted, so nobody really came over to Bitchute or Rumble and watched it, so it's kind of buried 3 years down in the list now. I think I will delete this copy and I will re-upload it so it'll be at the top of the list right below this video. So all of that information is there and it'll save me, 45 minutes in this video from having to show the evidence again. Okay, and I hate to do it for those of you who watch a lot of my content because I've already used this clip twice before. But again, this other video I used it in was also, 3.5 hours, and a lot of people just don't watch that. So for the people who are just tuning in to this, who just happened upon this video because they're interested in cryptids and shapeshifters and this type of thing, they may not all know what programmable matter is, or they may not have seen it in its scientific context. A lot of people have heard of black goo, but again, that's one of those, quote, paranormal things. So here's the clip from the scientists to show how they moved through the stages to get programmable matter, actual atoms down to the atomic size. So this is a good first step. Let's look at the M-Blocks self-assembling modular robots. This is sort of a baby step where they started to program matter, large hunks of matter, cubes, to self-assemble. So you get the idea. Basically, by putting these sensors on larger pieces of matter, they were able to control them through software to make them seek out other sensors and move toward them. Then they moved on to Cadam cylindrical prototypes because they could move in more directions than just a block. They moved more easily, they rolled more easily, and they could put more sensors on them. Then the next logical step was spheres, because they can move and roll and connect very easily, and you can cover them with sensors. So that's what they did. Then the next logical step was to go smaller, much smaller. So these are cadams, computerized atoms. They are the building blocks of what they are calling claytronics. So claytronics is like high-tech potter's clay. It would be a malleable mass of these cadams, these computerized atoms, all together in this claytronics, that instead of like the potter's clay being formed with your hands, it would form objects through computer software programs, artificial intelligence algorithms, wireless frequency technologies, sonic technologies.
Small. I mean, really small. I'm talking about programmable matter, actual three-dimensional tactile material that can take on any predetermined shape and then change shapes on demand.
And they're talking about adding in the technology of 3D printers, essentially is what it is. So instead of sending a fax, is how they describe it, instead of sending a fax to somebody, a facsimile, you can send through 3D printing using these cadams the program of something you have, at wherever point A is in your home, and you want to send it to somebody. They have their own basket of Legos over there. They have their own programmable matter, and they receive it and it will materialize. So you can probably see where I'm going with this.
Think the fax is dead? Wait until you can fax your whole body. You know, back in our self-reconfiguring modular robots episode, we talked about robots that can reshape and reform themselves so that they can do any particular task perfectly. Well, what if we take that same idea, but think small? I mean, really small. I'm talking about programmable matter, actual three-dimensional tactile material that can take on any predetermined shape and then change shapes on demand. Imagine that we have a programmable material workstation. Let's say that I have a trough full of claytronic cadams in front of me, and I take an object and dip it into that trough. The cadams flow over it, creating a virtual model of the object I've put into it. And then I send that to you, and you have your own trough of claytronic cadams that assemble themselves into that same three-dimensional object. Boom! I just sent you a copy of a real physical thing.
So a copy, a doppelganger. Don't let that escape you, that this isn't about teleportation, like one object going to another place. This is about creating a doppelganger. And that's important that it doesn't escape you as we move forward, because a lot of people, when they talk about the matrix or glitches in the matrix or, shapeshifters or this type of thing, they think that it's our environment, our reality is all one thing. And it's not. It's basically two realities layered on top of each other. There's nature, God's creation, and then there's this mimic, this AI sentient world simulation. Also note that here they're just talking about three-dimensional objects, like physical manifestations. But as we move forward in this, we'll talk about the neurological manifestations, that they are making copies. That's what we're talking about, an artificial spirit, or how the alien abductees always report being part of these beta programs where they made these artificial soul transfers. They made copies of people, of their consciousness, or so they think. Nothing close to the complexity of life, but this is what these technocrats believe is their gateway to immortality, because they won't bow their knee to God, so they're going to do it themselves. So this presentation was just about the material object part of it, but there's also the nanotechnology now that is being injected into humans and has been sprayed over us in chemtrails and everything else, that is brain mapping us, that is lodging like biosensors inside our nervous system all over the place. I'll play a clip of that later. Not just what the New Agers call in the chakra systems, but different places all over the body to map our neurological system. So you can see they literally use black goo as the example. But this is based on research and developments at MIT and Carnegie Mellon. Then we went from those older videos. Those were put up way before COVID-19 or any of that came out. So then when they launched COVID-19 and we started seeing these exact same images in the vaccine vials, like you can see here on the screen, in the thumbnail even, I put the image of what we were just looking at with programmable matter juxtaposed against what they saw under the microscope in the COVID vaccine vials. And clearly, this is exactly what we were just going through. This is programmable matter. And after this was left on the slide and they walked away and came back, it had disintegrated and reintegrated into these streams, these lines of, whatever it was creating, whatever it was programmed to do once it reached room temperature.
They seem to be joined together by, I can just say what I'm seeing.
Right.
I'm not sure what to make of it. If anybody has seen this before, then I would also like to know what it is. But if anybody has seen this before, then I would also like to know what it is. But I did about 4 samples and I saw this in each and every sample. I took it from the same vial, but I checked it 4 times. And then when these black structures, I just left the sample on the slide, and then I came back and I looked at it, and then these disc-like structures have they're gone. You can't find them anymore. But these black lines started to form. So that's the next thing I saw. And again, Stu, I wish I could tell you what it is, but I'm not a specialist in molecules or in particles.
I'm talking about programmable matter, actual three-dimensional tactile material that can take on any predetermined shape and then change shapes on demand.
So yeah, we have seen that before, again and again and again. See, this is why it's so important for us to share information. It's not to get likes or to get followers or anything like that. It's because we have to have unity. Unity in the body of Christ brings about the revelation, all of the puzzle pieces. And you can see Dr. Botha there. She's an incredibly intelligent woman and very experienced in microscopy, and yet hasn't seen this type of thing before. Assembling and disassembling, disintegrating, and then reassembling into something else. And she's like, I just don't know what I'm looking at. And I hear that again and again, whether it's Dr. Madej or just multitudes of scientists. And what they are seeing is what Rice University and other universities call Teslaphoresis. And that is the assembling of these nanotubes from this programmable matter. Here's another clip. All of these clips are directly from the Rice University site. So none of this is speculation. This is what they say it is. And as you watch this clip from Rice University, you might be wondering, well, what does this have to do with these COVID vaccine vials she was looking at? And it has everything to do with it, because Rice University, right here, you can see this is straight from rice.edu, are the ones being funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to develop these quantum dot tattoos, which are both the vaccine. So this is a vaccine, and it is also the vaccine record. And I use that term loosely. When I say vaccine, I just say that because that's what most people refer to this as. And not just this series of injections, but this probably 70-year injection program that we were born into. Or at the very least 50 or 60 years that I can track it back through the CIA programs, and the MK Ultra programs and all of that. So just for the sake of ease, I use the word vaccine, but we all know that this injection program we were born into, it has never been about vaccination. Not that they're not throwing little pieces of these things they tell us are viruses in there, and not that we don't actually build up immunity, because our body is designed by God to fight this stuff off. So I'm not denying any of that. I'm just saying I'm using that term loosely. And I will put the link below to Rice University, to this particular article, in fact, so you can go and read up on this. It's old news to most of us, but you just never know. Like I said, someone might have stumbled across this, just wanting to know about reptilian shapeshifters, and they don't have any idea that this is even going on, that the whole world is being injected with this nanotechnology right here. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation came to us and said, hey, we have a real problem knowing who's vaccinated. Even parents often don't know their own children's vaccination histories, McHugh said. So our idea was to put the record on the person. You mean in the person. So yeah, that's the quantum dot tattoo, where the microneedles dissolve and the nanotechnology circulates through your blood system, and it also leaves a mark, like a QR code. Sound anything like the mark of the beast? But like we've talked about before, don't get distracted with like Elon Musk's Neuralink implant. Like, that's so primitive. They're going to put wires in your head. No, they're building the nano bioelectronics is self-assembling inside people. So when we start to look at something like, oh, they're going to need a microchip, don't be distracted.
What we've designed, and we've done this very, very quietly, but we're glad to now release it to the world, is this idea of Teslaphoresis, which is a discovery we made several years ago, and we've been developing it. And Teslaphoresis the simplest way to understand it is self-assembly at a distance, just long distance assembly of materials. And what we did was, because we're at Rice, we had plenty of nanotubes around, so we decided to use nanotubes. And what we discovered was that these nanotubes can actually string together and form wires by themselves under this electric field.
So for a ton more information on that, hours and hours of more information and evidence on that, you can go over to my website or to one of the Bitchute or Rumble or whatever and find this video here. What are we really looking at? The mystery objects in the COVID vax are self-assembling synthetic biology and nanobioelectronics. I want to get on with this and get to this sentient mist. It's so interesting. And the shape-shifting cryptids and all of that. So anyway, there's all of the information about what we're talking about there if you still don't think this type of thing is scientifically possible. This one right here has the Dr. Roger Lear, where he was removing those alien implants, and they found all those decades ago, and they didn't know what they were looking at either. These self-assembling microchips, implants, that when they would try to take them out of the abductee, they would break apart, or they would even move away from the surgeon as if they had intelligence. And certainly this one, this 3-hour presentation, the COVID virus and a computer virus are the same thing. Bioweapons and biohacking DNA, smart viruses, neural implants, and optogenetics. Optogenetics is talking about what Rice University just said about how they are using these Li-Fi frequencies, light frequencies, to control these things, and how Bill Gates was the first person to design a computer virus. So that people are like, well, he's not even a doctor. Well, yeah, he doesn't have to be a doctor, because this is a smart virus. This is a biohack, and it's exactly like a computer virus. Just like they release that code into your system and it will eat away at your system, until it glitches, it won't even work anymore. It'll kill your computer. Well, this is the same type of thing. They put a snippet of this DNA program as the payload in these nanobots, and they insert it into people's bodies to do, whatever they want to do. And then these things here that they are telling us are viruses can be controlled by optogenetics. And I know, I hate to always be pointing back. This is not self-promotion. I'll say it again. This is important information for people who may want more information, and this may be their first time. And when I get into some real high strangeness here in a minute, and I start talking about vampires, and why do these cryptids and vampires avoid light? For somebody who has never watched any of this information on optogenetics, or have never seen the information presented in the Sun Simulator Li-Fi video, then we're not making any progress with the cryptids. It's just another, if you want to go watch just scary cryptid stories, go over to one of the Reddit channels where they just read Reddit encounters over and over and over all day, every day, year after year, and never have any answers. That's not what I do. I'm trying to dispel these mysteries, because there is a spell over us, a veil that makes this stuff all anomalies and mysteries, and they're not. There are scientific explanations, and these things around us in our environment and this matrix and all of it is real. And people are really seeing strange things like shapeshifters and walking trees. And I'm tired of everybody being gaslighted and told that they're crazy and none of this is going on, when there's a breakaway civilization that are laughing their butts off at us and have us enslaved and dumbed down to the point that we're forbidden to even have these conversations. Not just because Google started censoring, like just now at this point in history. No, we self-censored long before they had to do it forcibly. I know every one of us have someone in our family who has seen a UFO, who has seen a ghost, who have had these experiences, but we don't talk about them. That's hush hush. We don't talk about it, even with our own families, for fear of ridicule. People who see a Bigfoot and they go and tell their parents, their own parents, their closest loved ones, will not believe them. because this breakaway civilization controls the media and has told them, don't believe what you see with your own eyes. You only believe what we tell you, and you only talk about what we say you can talk about. And I'm tired of it. And if you're on a channel like this, I think you're probably tired of it too. So let's rip this band-aid off, let's lift this veil, and let's talk about it. There are scientific explanations for why many of these shape-shifting cryptids especially avoid light, and why we have these weird reports like Men in Black encounters when they come to intimidate the UFO witnesses. They'll do strange things like avoid the microwave appliances. They will like shy way across the room and not get close to microwaves. There's a reason for all of this. None of it is anomalous. And that is what we're seeing here on the screen. These graphics, they keep showing us that they tell us our quote viruses have always been programmable matter. The secret is hidden right in front of our faces. It always is. I mean, look at them. This is exactly programmable matter. These aren't viruses as we have been taught. Like in the standard COVID image, you can see the proteins, the spike proteins they call them, that are all around the outside. Those are magnetoproteins. Since this video is about cryptids and strange phenomenon that can be explained by this technology, I'm not going to go through all the tech again. But as you can see on the screen, this is real science. These are magnetic protein crystals, and shows these right down here in the bottom right hand corner, magneto nano sensor right there. And do these not look like viruses or what they tell us are viruses? It's the same thing. And of course, why so many people are reporting metals sticking to them after they start the injections, and even people who haven't had the injections, who have been cross-contaminated, or they've been layering this stuff in for years. They even found it in the meat, because if it's in the crops and it's being sprayed through chemtrails, then obviously it's in the animals. And where does the meat in the grocery store come from? Animals. So yeah, it's all really happening. People are becoming magnetized as we all get colonized by this stuff. I mean, we're all beating back the beast, trying to detox and do all that we can, but we're coming to the end of this thing here. God makes it perfectly clear in Matthew 24:22, except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. And thank you, God, for that, because these vaccines are self-replicating and self-spreading. That much they did teach us about, quote, viruses, right? But the good news about the apocalypse is that the word apocalypse literally means the unveiling, to pull the curtain back. So all these things hidden are being unveiled right now. So while all the people in that kingdom are busy killing one another, you've got like the communists and Nazis fighting, while they're doing that thing, God is teaching and elevating his children to the positions that he has prepared for us. So this is how it goes in the fullness of time. Everybody will be vindicated. Even David Icke talking about shape-shifting reptilians. All of this will come to light, and all of the passe scientism and pseudoscience that they have been teaching us to keep us blind and dumb, it will all fall away with everything barbaric and passe. So even though they might mock us now because we're fringe, right? Well, I'd rather be way out on the pioneering edge than way back in the crowd. I'd rather be a leader than a follower. So I'm going to talk about this stuff. So they're computerizing matter and they're computerizing DNA. Okay, I know. Let's get to it, right? Let's get to the cryptids. Are there any reports of what we just talked about? Are people encountering anything out here in this world that matches the characteristics of what we just talked about? Are there eyewitnesses of green fog, of sentient mist, of literally something resembling this black goo, this, what do they call it? The black smoke monster or something on that series Lost? Like a black mist in the corner of a room manifesting into the general shape of a human, a shadow person that then holds them down, that we call sleep paralysis, that can literally paralyze their body, that can influence their thoughts and put torturous images in their mind while they're being paralyzed? Do we see anything like this in the world around us? Is this technology already on the loose? And the answer is, of course. Of course, we've heard just limitless piles and piles of humans encountering exactly this, going all the way back to ancient times and in the Middle Ages, and the evil doppelgangers, they called them, these evil replicas of people that started showing up, to probably 80% of what we call ghost encounters. People see this mist, ectoplasm, sort of materializing into something solid. So I guess we'll jump right in with some of Linda Godfrey's work on the sentient mist. In her book, Monsters Among Us, she has an entire section on sentient mist and these types of phenomenon. In section 4, Creatures of Shadows, Mists, and Lights, especially chapter 16, where she specifically has stories of these green mists and sentient atmospheres. Then all the way down in chapter 21 and 22, she starts tying it into these encounters with shape-shifting cryptids, or cryptids that seem to materialize out of a mist.
One of the weirdest is what he calls the green haze. A light green, translucent mist with no apparent source that he has spotted twice in 2011 and 2012. Kevin's first encounter with the green mist was at dusk on a clear day as he sat doing paperwork in his squad car. He had parked in the gravel lot next to the expansive marsh and footpath that leads into a dark, hilly woods just north of the city of Burlington, the same wooded area where Mary Sutherland believes the Burlington Vortex is located. But Kevin didn't know that in 2011. The phenomenon that appeared to be a large area of rolling green haze was something he'd never seen before. Kevin said he didn't know exactly where the mist came from. It just suddenly appeared. The haze then proceeded to move toward him as if on a mission of its own. Kevin watched the haze, fascinated, as it began to drift in a northwesterly direction, straight toward his squad car. As the haze drew nearer, it suddenly began to affect the vehicle's electronic systems. Although the car's engine kept running, its RPM rate slowed to a minimum, and the headlights dimmed to where they were barely discernible. The computer screen blanked out, and the fully charged portable police radio appeared to be dead. The dampening effect continued as the haze changed course slightly to the north and then wafted its way up into the woods. Kevin said at that point, it simply vanished into the trees. Everything operated normally once it was gone, even the portable police radio, said Kevin. It is hard to say how large the area of the haze was since I was never inside of it, but judging from the length of it, I would say at least an acre. I asked Kevin how long he thought the entire episode lasted, and his story grew even stranger. I do not know the time span of this event, said the officer. I never looked at my watch. However, when I parked in the lot, there was still pink in the sky to the west. When the haze was gone, the sky was dark, black, and it was near the end of the shift, about 10 p.m. His other run-in with the green fog also occurred in a parking lot. This time it was just east of Burlington in Fisher County Park, near the boat ramp on the south shore of Browns Lake, off Durand Avenue. The haze seemed to just appear near the marine area just west of Fisher Park, he said. It drifted to the northwest over the lake toward the island with the house on it. It just disappeared once it got toward the south end of the island.
So that encounter really reminds me of like the Bermuda Triangle type stuff. And it doesn't have to be in that location, but this UFO-related green electric mist that several airplanes have reported being caught in this green electrical mist. And it shuts down their devices and especially messes with their magnetic instruments, their compasses and things like that, which again, talking about the magnetism being one of the major components in controlling and organizing these nano-swarms. So that's interesting. Sometimes pilots report visibly seeing a UFO before, during, or after one of these encounters with this green electric mist. And other times it's just like that police officer that we just heard about. They just report seeing a giant cloud of it. Like he said, what was it, an acre? About an acre in size. So much bigger than we would think of as a ghost or a demon, a demonic spirit. But still, the ghost hunters, they use those devices to pick up, thermal changes in the atmosphere, to pick up electromagnetic changes. So even if the nano swarm is so dispersed that you don't see anything like ectoplasm or the green mist or anything like that manifesting, it doesn't mean that it's not still present, only just not as dense, not as condensed. And it's no secret that they have that technology. People who report encounters with these cryptids, the ones that we call aliens, they always report them materializing and dematerializing or being able to move through walls. But it's interesting, the ones that materialize the most often in people's bedrooms during these alien abductions and whatnot, that it's usually the small grays, which I think all of us pretty much agree are the synthetics, that those are synthetic organisms, sort of avatars, little avatars for the taller grays or these other human hybrids that are not fully synthetic, but are actually part biological. It seems like the tall grays and these other like humanoid hybrids, the ones, the flesh and blood ones, seems like they always stay in the background and they send out these avatars or surrogates, like the Bruce Willis movie Surrogates, how they all stay in their houses because they don't want to get in a car wreck or get hurt, so they just send out their consciousness in the surrogates. It seems like the majority of these bedroom encounters and abductions are one of two things. They either involve the little gray synthetic beings, or they're a virtual reality experience where they just experience the cloud or the light over them and they are given a virtual reality sort of message. But it's actually pretty rare for these other cryptids, that we call the alien races, for them to make an appearance. I guess it's because, like Phil Schneider said, in the underground caverns, when they accidentally drilled into that pre-existing ancient tunnel system, and the military had that shootout, a fight with the tall grays, that they shot them and they died. They weren't immortal. They had mortality and they were able to kill these things. Of course, these things had high-tech frequency weapons and they were able to kill almost all of the humans. But nonetheless, Phil Schneider said that you could shoot these things and they would bleed and they would die. On the other hand, like the Terminator movie, what is it, T2, where the next level of robots aren't, like mechanical robots. They're what we're talking about right here, shape-shifting nano-swarms that can take on appearances of people. Like Michael Crichton's book said, that they would actually be doppelgangers. They could take on other people's appearance. Or like people report with the small gray aliens when they come into rooms and stuff, that they can move right through the walls, they can move right through the windows, they can, do like we're watching right here on the screen with the Terminator movies, that these are self-assembling, shape-shifting, the next generation of robots are nanobots. Anyway, some of the older UFO reports about Area 51 and all of that, and them passing on these technologies in these deep underground military bases. And one of the technologies that they talked about was this headband that the aliens would wear, they said, to navigate their ships. But I think it was probably something even deeper than that, because, we've talked about this before with this technology, that the interdimensional crafts that they are, quote, piloting, they are all created. Everyone reports that they don't have any seams or bolts or anything holding them together. It's as if they were poured into a mold, like they were made all one piece. And the abductees even report the interiors moving, like these bots here on the screen, like doors forming out of nowhere and parts of them expanding or contracting and that sort of thing. Or one I can think of off the top of my head is that the table, the exam table that they're on, they say that a table rises up out of the floor as if it formed from the floor or came from the floor, not that it had hydraulics or a door opened and it came out of the floor. They'll say that they entered the room and the table like formed out of the floor. So it makes you wonder if like this sort of device, this predictive programming in this is saying just that, that these synthetics piloting these crafts and these crafts themselves are actual shapeshifters. The crafts themselves could be shape-shifting technology, which is what KJ always says. And it sounded a little far out there the first time I heard him say that. I'm like, okay, the crafts themselves are alive. They're, I don't get it. Like they're the shapeshifters, and now I get it. And I completely agree. So the more and more that we can see reality in context of what technology actually exists, not what they've shared with the public, when you can see reality in its fullness, yeah, it's no coincidence that we see these green electric mist phenomenon around UFOs and UFO technology. And it's not a coincidence that the Montauk boys said that it was these same aliens who shared this technology with the military. It really does all make perfect sense if they would just allow us to learn, if they would stop censoring everything intelligent and just allow us to learn. And we see the same thing with tornadoes. There's a huge cover up about what causes tornadoes and what actually occurs atmospherically during a tornado. Now, not all of them. I'm not saying there aren't little dirt devils that go through your yard that might just be wind. But you know what I'm talking about. These huge tornado systems where the entire atmosphere turns green. And when some of these tornadoes move through areas with this green atmosphere, we see the same types of anomalies that were seen during the Philadelphia experiment, where, say, like a piece of straw will go through a window, but when they inspect it after the tornado has passed, it's not that the piece of straw broke the window or broke a hole in the window. It's literally melded like one with the glass. It went through the glass like they were both temporarily liquid or something, and then reformed together where the straw is melded into the glass as one with the glass. And there are several artifacts like that. I think someone even started a museum, a tornado museum, with artifacts like that, showing that there's something going on, like on a quantum physics sort of level. I did a video about it several years ago. I'll try to find it, since they deleted my YouTube channel, all those old archives, like little videos on stuff like that, are just kind of got lost in the cracks. I'll try to find it though, that could more specifically give some examples like that. And I personally think that this is all one and the same thing. And if we understand it, we can understand that a storm has life, you might say. Why Jesus had authority and he could stand up and calm the storm. He could literally command it and it would stop. We've been lied to about what the atmosphere even is, let alone start talking about a sentient atmosphere. I mean, just think about it. If they've lied to us about what space actually is, if space exists in the sense of, what we've been told space is, how do we know that this green mist that collects at the magnetic poles seems to be drawn to the magnetic poles? How do we know that this aurora borealis effect that we're seeing aren't massive swarms of this green mist, of this sentient mist? And it's especially interesting that now, as we move, closer to the end, closer to the event horizon, that people are reporting these northern lights, the aurora borealis, everywhere. It's like over Idaho, it's over Illinois, it's Montana, it's everywhere. And the news is covering it. And they have to cover it because people are seeing these glowing clouds of particles everywhere. I mean, here's Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, So the northern lights seem to be out exploring the world. They're not so concerned about where magnetic north is these days. Here's South Dakota, but you get the point. And I know that in a lot of end time visions, including two that I had, there was this real strong magenta color in the sky in these particle clouds. And it clearly had something to do with this technology. In fact, harkening back to what like Dr. Madej witnessed when she put the vaccines under the microscope, she saw that when it raised up to room temperature and these things started moving around, that they started emitting light like this.
Solution, nothing was diluted, no human tissue was added, only the white light from the microscope. And of course, over time, it was becoming more room temperature from the refrigeration. That was it. And so at first it looked just translucent. And then as time went on, over 2 hours, colors appeared, which I've never seen anything like this. There wasn't a chemical reaction happening. It was a brilliant like blue and royal purple and a yellow and sometimes green. And so these colors appearing, I did not know what that was. After investigating a superconducting material can do that with white light being emitted to it. Okay, a superconducting material would be something like an injectable computing system. Anyhow, these fibers were appearing more and more. Some of the fibers had a little cube structure on it. I'm not sure what that was. And also metallic fragments were in there. The Johnson & Johnson, they also had colors appeared. Their colors were different. They were like a fluorescent pastel kind of color. Again, a lot of synthetic structures in there as well.
Okay, let's play a couple more clips of these encounters. This next one was a hunter, and it was a very, quote, spiritual experience for him, because when this thing passed through the woods, it also passed through him, and he felt the emotions of this thing, that all negative emotions at that. And this wasn't all just in his head and his own imagination, because there was another animal there in the woods, and when this thing passed through, it like paralyzed that animal. It laid down even a deer, and even laid its head on the ground until this thing passed, and then it jumped up and ran off.
Michigan's green glow. Glenn Arntzen says that at about 9 one morning during the 1985 deer hunting season, he spied a small yearling deer in a swamp near the Escanaba River State Forest in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, near the small community of Helps. He had just decided that the animal was too scrawny to shoot when the world around him instantly changed. All of a sudden, the swamp appeared to take on this weird greenish hue, he said in a letter he sent me describing his experience. I mean, the trees, the ground, the sky all appeared this greenish color, even the air. I don't know how to explain it. Even more weirdly, the green air seemed to affect the little deer, too. Arntzen watched as it shivered and then lay down, its head on the ground. At the same time, a wave of powerful yet conflicting emotions hit Arntzen. I had this weird feeling, one of sadness, remorse, shame, sorrow, he wrote. It was so weird. I wanted to stick my head out of my blind and look up into the sky, but I just couldn't do it. As the green hue passed over him, it rolled off into the swamp and disappeared. The green glow's passing also affected the small deer, which leaped to its feet and dashed off in, strangely enough, the same direction that the glow was headed. He has no history of psychological problems and has never experienced anything like it since then. A relative he confided in tried to convince him that the anomaly was caused by a low-pressure system in the atmosphere, but Arntzen vehemently disagreed with that idea. It was way more than that, said Arntzen. It was something else. This is the weirdest thing that ever happened to me. Arntzen estimated that while the experience should have lasted only 3 minutes, it felt more like 15 minutes, as if time had expanded inside the green glow. That's very similar to Kevin's perception of more time having passed than he realized when he was enveloped in the rolling green mist. I was surprised to find another older account of an encounter with a green mist that included the same characteristics as the Michigan and Wisconsin cases we just discussed, especially the time discrepancies and effects on communication systems. This one occurred near Aveley in Essex, England, in 1974, and was retold by Patrick Harper in Daimonic Reality. In this incident, a family consisting of 2 parents and their 3 school-aged children noticed a blue light tracking them among the roadside trees as they drove home from a social event one evening. After some minutes, the light finally stopped appearing, and the next thing they noticed was that the world around them went silent, just as their car entered a large mass of green fog or mist. The phenomenon shorted out their car's radio and stopped the engine momentarily. It seemed like only seconds until the car's engine somehow started again and the automobile burst from the fog, but when they checked the time, they could not account for over 2 hours between encountering the fog and arriving back at their house. They also discovered that their television had gone dead. The family continued to endure nightmares, poltergeist activity in their home.
Okay, I'll stop there. I chose that one because of what she just said about the poltergeist activity that followed the event. I believe that this is all smaller parts of one larger thing that's going on. So I do believe that that's just another evidence that these same types of phenomena, like the shadow people manifesting out of the black mist in the corner of the room, or a ghost manifesting out of this ectoplasm, all of that is the same as, say, a cryptid manifesting out of this same electronic fog. In one of the reports, she tells of this encounter that this couple was having, and this dog man was coming up to the window, and they noticed one night when it walked away, it didn't have a bottom half. Like it just sort of trailed off, like invisible into mist. So it was just the torso was manifested, was like tangibly solid, but from the waist down, it wasn't completely manifested. So we see that a lot. You guys know we hear that a lot. With cryptids, they'll say, oh, like the top half was peeking out of a portal. So like only its head was manifested, but the bottom wasn't. Or, you know, the Native Americans said that Sasquatch and other cryptids would dematerialize right in front of them or materialize right in front of them. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that every single one of these creatures is this. Quite the opposite. Like I always say in these videos, I think that that's the biggest mistake that people make in, you know, all of these different fields, is that they want to pigeonhole it into like one thing is going on. But there are all kinds of things going on in this magnificent multiverse. So, you know, people always want to go, oh, well, UFOs are just this. It's just military craft, or they're just spiritual, or they're just, and it's like, well, all those things are going on. Some of these things we are seeing are black ops crafts, usually based on technology they were given in trade, you know, from their peace treaty that they're in with the Antichrist armies, the demon spawn. So some of them are military, but not all of them are. Some of them are extra dimensional, and some of the lights, that just the orbs that we see, are spiritual, meaning even higher than extra dimensional technologies, like God spiritual. Likewise, you see the divide in, say, the Bigfoot community. There are people who get so upset because they're like, no, it's cryptozoology is just the study of undiscovered animals. This is just an ape, a primate, or, you know, whatever that hasn't been classified yet. And if you suggest anything supernatural, they get so upset. And vice versa, the people who believe in the supernatural aspects and what the Native Americans recorded, that, you know, seeing these things materialize and dematerialize, people from that group get really upset if you try to say that there are just flesh and blood humanoid hybrids. But like we talked about with the aliens earlier, the little grays being like the synthetics, and then the people puppeting those avatars behind them, like Philip Schneider said, were mortal beings, like humanoid, hybrid, bipedal creatures that could be shot and killed. And they bled, these were real flesh and blood creatures. So I believe all of that is going on. I believe that there were tribes of cynocephaly. I believe that there were humanoid hybrids. I mean, look at the art of ancient Egypt. Everything's like a human with a bird's head, or a human with a dog's head, or like the Sphinx, it's got the animal body and the human head. So we know from the Book of Enoch about all the genetic experiments, the genetic engineering that the fallen angels were doing. So, I believe in all of that as well. But there is now this mimic. It's a technological resurrection, if you will, of these beings that were wiped out in the antediluvian world, these Nephilim creatures. And I think the actual eyewitness accounts bear that out. Some people say it was the weirdest thing because they shot it, and it didn't even flinch. It was like that Terminator movie where he went right through the bars, like it did it nothing. There was no blood, no hole, anything like that. And then other people say that they shot him and it left a blood trail, or they hit them with their car and it lay on the side of the road dead. So anyway, you can go back and listen to Linda Godfrey's, the rest of her audiobook, or you can just type in Monsters Among Us and Linda Godfrey. And when her books come out, she usually does a lot of interviews right when they come out. So several of those talked about other stories with the sentient mist. You may want to go listen to those. She has one story on there where this guy was having this trouble. It was almost like Skinwalker Ranch. He was having a lot of this paranormal activity on his property, and he set up trail cams like I have everywhere in the woods, and he would put deer carcass in front of the camera to bring in the predators to see if he could get a glimpse of this thing. And it would take several pictures, and he did multiple. She said, I don't know, over a dozen or a dozen dead deer in front of this, and it was intelligent. It was intelligent. It knew how to pause the camera to make the camera stop, like, the power in the car goes out and the radio goes out. Like, it had the ability to do that. So the shots would be, you'd see the mist arriving in the picture, and then there would be no shots, and then the very next shot, the entire deer carcass is gone. But when he got there to retrieve, the chip and the camera, it was still there and intact. And this was one of those investigations that she went and handled firsthand. She went and stayed there and did the investigation. I don't remember exactly what she said, if it was 6 months or a year, that, she went and made sure that this guy wasn't tampering with the cameras and that this was actually happening. So again, that goes along with these, electronic control, the control of these electronic devices that this AI has. Okay, one more. I want to play this one because I think it's always nice to hear somebody tell their story in their own voice, because then it seems easier to gauge their sincerity and to feel their emotion than if you're just, being read an audiobook or something. So this is from Monster 911. It's episode 74. These guys used to be Oklahoma Cryptid Brothers. This is Lance Hightower. I had put some of his clips in the Men in Black video that I did about the government cover-up, that they're not just covering up UFO encounters, that these Men in Black are showing up to Bigfoot encounters, they're disposing of bodies, they're plowing over dirt, they're confiscating SIM cards of people who saw a dog man. They're involved in this cover-up of this entire phenomenon. The bigger picture, it's not, Men in Black are not a UFO thing. They are a shadow government that is covering up this whole thing. Anyway, Lance has had several guests on from several states that have encountered these Men in Black. Great information. And Lance has agreed to come on and do an interview. We actually had it scheduled 2 weeks ago before my website went down, when they deleted my YouTube channel. And so I had to go back and rebuild the whole website and all that. So I canceled all my interviews. So I still have all this, on the books. We just had to bump everything back a month or so that I could get everything done that I have to do in life. So I have Lance coming on to talk about several of those cases. Incredibly and really good information, firsthand information. And then I have Jerry Marzinski coming on. That is going to be an incredible interview. Many of you probably remember him from the end of the RH negative video where he worked in the prisons. And this is a guy, secular, completely mainstream, didn't believe in any of this, PhD, well educated, very intelligent, tons of, decades of experience. And he started working with schizophrenics in the prison system. And they were told, oh, there is no cure for schizophrenia. And he began listening to these people, not just telling them, not just gaslighting them, but asking them, what is going on? What are the voices saying to you? And even though he didn't believe these were separate parasitic entities at first for a long time, he eventually had some encounters, some experiences like we're talking about here, and completely changed his life. And if you've seen that interview at the end of the RH negative Bloodlines video, he's fantastic. So he's going to come on. I think we're taping on the 26th. And then of course I still have David Paulides coming up, and Josh over at Paranormal Roundtable. He's agreed to come on and do an interview as well. We don't have a date set yet, but I'll be on his Tuesday live stream right before doing a promo. I'll let you guys know. But I look forward to that because like when he was on Vic's show, Dogman Encounters Radio, he said that Vic was very adamant about leaving out anything that didn't make these things out to be like flesh and blood creatures. And in several of the encounters, they were tied into people doing these weird rituals first, or people who were into black magic and they had hauntings in their house, and then they had these encounters with these werewolf type dogmen demonic creatures. So there were all sorts of spiritual and occult connections that Josh said he wasn't allowed to talk about, that they were sort of cut from the show. And that's exactly what I want to talk about. We want to get the full picture, the big picture. We want the uncensored picture. That's what we need to get to the truth. You can take it or leave it, that's up to you. But we need to hear the whole story. And so Josh is going to come on and do that. And I'm really excited about that. Okay, but we'll get to all that when we get to that. But right now, let's finish up. I want to do one more of these sentient mist, black fog, cryptid stories before we move on to the walking trees segment. So this is on Monster 911. It's episode 74. And here is a gentleman telling Lance about his encounter.
And building a little cabin we staying in it. We had a picnic table outside one evening. It was on a Labor Day. And I was at that picnic table, was reading a book. Something caught my eye, and I looked up. Across the way, coming across the bridge, was a black cloud. And it wasn't real big. And it come top of that ridge. It was going just about as fast as you could walk. And there was 5 big old birds. I guess birds, I don't know, coming out of that cloud and went down in the woods. I couldn't tell where they went after they got down on the side of the ridge. And I hollered at my wife and told her to come out here and bring the camera. She come out. And that thing was just slowly moving. It was kind of headed toward where we was at. And she snapped a picture. And that thing sped up and it was gone. That cloud.
Wow.
And she, digital camera, she couldn't get a second picture of it. It was gone.
And if you think that's weird, stick around, because now we're going to talk about these walking trees. Many tribes recorded that they were actual entities, and that they camouflaged themselves or disguised or shapeshifted into sticks and trees, and yet they could disintegrate, like dematerialize sometimes, or they could just walk away. And there are modern encounters too. So I'm going to play about, I don't know, 8 minutes of back-to-back clips of maybe 3 or 4 stories about these walking trees. Okay, before anybody jumps ship and says, okay, you've gone way too far with the, walking trees thing, let's be clear that, like, we're looking at a plant right now underwater and a shapeshifter is on it, right? See, so it's completely camouflaged as, not a tree, but you get the picture. So regardless of where you come down on cryptozoology, if you believe that these are just creatures that haven't yet been classified, well, they're still shapeshifters that disguise themselves as trees and plants. Like, this is real in nature. So could there be one, a large one? When you look back at the bones that we've recovered from giants and, dinosaurs, if you believe in that, uh, could there be giant animals that could disguise themselves as plants and trees? Why not? We just saw it right in front of our eyes. Or if you don't believe it's that simple and that it is more this programmable matter. And I'm going to show you some clips from that movie, The Arrival, about the aliens and how they use the octopus actually as sort of a framework for these aliens. So if you come down on the side of programmable matter and black goo, and that these things are materializing as trees, these entities are, and it has to do with that, either way, I don't know, but I'm certainly not going to tell all of these eyewitnesses that I do know, and I'm not going to gaslight them and tell them that they don't know what they see with their own eyes, because whether we can cope with it or not, these strange creatures are in the world with us, and you can see right in front of your face they can shapeshift and disguise themselves as a tree or a rock or maybe a person. I mean, we see the same type of bumpy change in the skin on some of these people we see on the television. We see it repeatedly, just like Pfizer's CEO, the neck anomaly. We see that a lot, especially in news reporters for some reason. We'll see, and this isn't that, crystalline hologram anomaly where the whole image starts to break down. This is actually their skin starting to bump up in places, just exactly like we saw that octopus do when it was trying to form itself, into the image of what it was camouflaged as being. So it's very strange. I'll play this clip and then I'll play the Pfizer CEO, and then I'll play another news clip where the lady really, really, I mean, she looks like she has an octopus on her face. It's unbelievable. Like, the bumps come up everywhere. It's really creepy.
Là. Là, là. Oups. Là. Là, là.
This is just weird. I've never seen anything like this. Maybe the crew has, but this is extremely strange to me. And I've got a couple different angles here, but again, we have the HD version just so you can see that this is real and not edited. And then we have the version where they did edit it, but it slowed it and enhanced it so you can see what's going on. This is the CEO of Pfizer. Okay, in clip 11. So let's roll clip 11 so you can see the enhanced zoom in on his neck. He's doing an interview on NBC, and I mean, I don't talk about lizard people, but have you ever seen that before? Look at this.
What have you learned about serious side effects in this vaccine?
Okay, this is an older one that probably most of you have seen, but it's the perfect example of this. I grabbed this from KJ's Black Goo video, so I'll post that link down below to his full video since it's about the same thing this video is about. But anyway, in this clip, you can see she starts out as like perfectly normal, cute, and then not just the bump on her neck here, but is one on the side of her face, and then it starts around her mouth and then around her eyes and then her forehead. and it looks exactly like she has an octopus on her face. I'll juxtapose them. I'll put a clip of that shape-shifting next to what she's doing, her face is doing. And the other thing to note about this one is that she's aware of it. She starts to stumble on her speech as if she can't concentrate because she knows something is changing. And then the people in the control booth are screaming. They're like, cut it or something. There's like this big cover up where everyone's trying to smooth it over. Oh, she didn't read the script before. Oh, they were yelling about that. And, they're all like trying to, in real time, mask what we all saw with our own eyes. And in past videos, I've done tons of examples of that with the reptilian eyes or these shape-shifting anomalies, where when the people start to change, they know it, they recognize it, and they'll snap their head down. So look away from the camera. They're aware when the change starts to happen. And you'll see that in this clip too. She's aware that she's starting to be unmasked.
Celebrities' risk factors in making her analysis. For example, she said, it appears Britney is suffering from a major psychological disorder and that it might actually be bipolar. Could be that. The doctor predicts how much longer they'll live. Sick, I know, but I also know you want to hear what she has to say. The doc says if you people don't get help or straighten up fast. I haven't read any of this. Britney won't make it to the age 30, Lindsay won't see 25, and Michael Jackson has no more than 5 years left. At the other end, Angelina's going to have a long, healthy life, and so will George Bush and Richie. If you're yelling in the booth, are they yelling at me?
Would it be easy if I looked like this? Would this be easy for you, man?
Okay, now on to the encounters with walking trees. This clip I'm taking from a channel called After Life Goes On. I'll put the link below in the description box. For whatever reason, they only have like 600 and some subscribers, so if you choose to do so, please go over there and show them some love and appreciation and maybe subscribe.
In the traditions of many Northwest Indian tribes are stories about the Stick Indians. They are extremely dangerous forest spirits who have the powers to paralyze, hypnotize, or lure people into the woods by making eerie sounds of whistling or mimicking voices. There are even legends of them being carnivores, basically meaning they eat people. Some tribes claim they are shapeshifters who can transform into trees and rocks to hide in plain sight. Their true form is unknown, for each tribe has a different description of them, and none of them good. It was said that Geronimo, the great Apache warrior, was able to turn himself into a boulder and other shapes. My best friend and I hunt every year in the same spot on my uncle's farm in Fincastle, Virginia. There was no access road. We had to drive through his cow fields to reach that side of the forest. Because it was private land, we had several acres to ourselves. The hunting trip ended up being a dud. The forest had been eerily empty of any life. No deer, raccoons, or even squirrels had been sighted all day. And it even seemed as if all the birds had taken flight to anywhere but here. The sun was just setting when we called it a day. Walking out of the forest, we headed across the field, a 10-minute walk. I was only a few feet away from my truck when a fragrance in the air immediately drew 100% of my attention. Can't describe what it smelled like, only how my body reacted to it. It was such an intoxicating scent that it caused my toes to curl in pleasure. I'm embarrassed to say I was a little turned on by it. There was a deep longing in it too. I wanted to be there with that scent more than anything else in the world. It was all I could think of. The next thing I remembered was hearing a loud boom so close to my ear, it left my head ringing. Feeling as if I was just woken up from a deep sleep, I found myself walking away from my truck and out back into the open field. Why are we going the opposite way? As I pick up my rifle off the ground, I realized it had gone off. It was a bullet that had whizzed by my ear. Whew, that was close. I had just digested this shocking information when a different smell hit my nose. It was the stench of rotten vegetation mixed in with rotten meat. Almost caused me to lose my lunch. The most awful smell and overpowering. Trying to find the source, I scanned the area. In the direction I had been heading, out in the field, was what I thought to be tall farm machinery at first. Using my binoculars to focus in on it, I saw it was a large grayish-black tree. The rotten smell seemed to be emanating from it. An irrational urge to flee from my life hit me. Had to squash it down because I see Carol was still walking towards it. Deep down in my bones, I knew this was bad, real bad. Sucking it up, I run up to her and try to get her to turn around, but it was like she was in a trance, totally unaware I was there. I had to slap her twice hard across the face to get her to snap out of it. We both just took off running as fast as our legs could carry us back to my truck. When we got in, I looked and the tree was gone. That sent us into a full frenzy. You know, in the movies, when you see people dropping their keys because they are panicking too much? Well, it's true. I actually dropped my keys twice trying to get them into the ignition. And it didn't help with Carol screaming at me to get us the hell out of there. And boy, did I. Back at the house, we went over the experience. Carol said it felt as if the scent was floating her on air towards it. Feeling so light and free, she couldn't resist. The next thing she remembers is me slapping her. When she saw the tree in the distance and got a whiff of the rotten smell, said she didn't know why but knew her life was in danger and just ran. We believed the smell was some sort of hypnotic lure. It put us in a trance to get us to come to it. Looks like my rifle had slipped from my hands, but not before my finger accidentally pulled the trigger. It discharging and almost taking my head off is what saved our lives. We shudder thinking what could have happened to us otherwise. What kind of predator is able to hypnotize with scent? We both agree, no matter how silly it sounds, it looked like a tree. We shared with my uncle, and he told us there was folklore about a devil that lives among the trees. Over the years, he has lost cows last seen grazing in the fields close to the woods, never to be found. Now he tells us. I lived in a townhouse in Maryland. It was my escape from the city. My backyard led to a forested area, and with 2 dogs, it was perfect. Almost every day I took my dogs walking into the woods. Late one night, I was hanging out on the back porch with a couple of friends when my dogs whined to be let out. My friends went with me as I took them out into the backyard. All of a sudden, we noticed at the same time a tree off by itself that was not there before. It was about 50 feet away from my back door, so no way we could not have seen it from my porch. My dogs went crazy. One of my friends had to help me hold them back, for they were both straining on their leashes to get to the tree. I can't describe this feeling that came over me as I looked at it. Something just wasn't right. I had the scary thought that the tree was after my dogs. I laughed to myself, wondering where the hell that crazy idea had come from. Curious about the tree, one of my friends started walking towards it, and we all stared in shock as this huge tree started moving its way to the forest. So stunned, we just stood there watching it as the dogs yelped in fear and confusion. It wasn't fast, and its motion was almost fluid, like an octopus. The lights from other porches lit up the area enough to see that it was light brown in color. The bark looked smooth and rubbery by the way the light reflected off of it. Its many branches were very high up, and I could see no leaves on them. We all heard crashing as it made its way deep into the forest. That's when the fear kicked in. I can't imagine how it must have looked to see 3 grown men knocking each other down in an effort to get into the house first. Crazy story, huh? I don't care what it was, but it left enough of an impression where I don't go anywhere near the woods anymore. Give me the concrete jungle any day. We used to sneak in and go fishing at one of the 2 lakes at Green River Golf Course off the 91 freeway in Southern California. It's a long walk to the best lake that was all the way towards the back of the course. We were walking and goofing off, me and my cousin and another friend, as we made our way towards the lake. Just as soon as it came to sight, movement caught my eye, stopping me in my tracks. I swear to this day what we saw is true. On the other side of the lake, some of the trees were swinging hard, as if it was really windy, but there was no wind. It actually took me a moment or two to really see what was going on. 8 to 10 of the trees were moving toward the lake just as we were coming on it, and it was like we startled them, for half went one way and half went the other, as if trying to clear out before we got there. From the moonlight, we could see their silhouettes move. It really freaked us out, and we never fished that night. Nobody believed us. We tried staking out the lake with some friends, but never saw anything again. People think I made it up. Why would I make up a story about walking trees? It even sounds stupid to me, but it really happened. My wife and I went to metal detect in a rural area of upstate New York that we had hunted many times before. On site, we discovered something that had not been there the previous day. There, in the middle of this forested area, was a huge boulder, easily the size of half of us. We thought we were in the wrong spot until we found the old cellar hole we had been digging bottles out of, and our note we had left behind. The cellar hole was like 12 feet away from this gigantic boulder that shouldn't be there. We tried to investigate, but there were no large rocks anywhere, no damaged trees to show it rolled to the spot, no road for a truck to dump it off. If it had been dropped from the sky, there should have been evidence of an impact, but there was none. It was a complete mystery.
So again, I'm sure you guys recognized right off that there's so much overlap on these seemingly unrelated mysteries, right? We know with the cryptids, there's constantly the reports of whether it's infrasound or some sort of trance state that comes over people. One thing that I thought was interesting was the mimic of voices of your family members, loved ones, friends, things like that. In the 3 days of darkness, many people report being given visions that is one of the things that will happen. That Passover was described as a very real physical darkness that passed over the area. So I think that's interesting in light of what we're talking about, and that people who claim they have been given prophetic glimpses of the 3 days of darkness, they report this demonic presence outside that is mimicking the voices of loved ones, trying to deceive people, to call them out of their homes, or actually maybe not to call them out of their homes, but more like to invite them in, like we see with the black-eyed kids, or like it's said with the vampires, they have to be invited in of your own free will. And the black-eyed kids are always doing the same thing. Oh, we need to use the phone. Can we come in? Will you give us a ride? You know the black-eyed kids stories. So basically, those are the reports during the Passover or the 3 days of darkness, that these entities will be mimicking the voices of loved ones to try and get people to let them in. And that ties into the nanotechnology and the targeted individual, the directed energy weapons with the targeted individuals. Long time ago, there was a YouTuber, I don't know, she might not have gotten kicked off. Her handle was Nania, I think. she was talking about this voice mimicking technology that was part of this program that she was in against her will. She said that this AI or this thing was calling her mother and her relatives using her voice and saying strange things. And so, her mother would call her and be like, "What's going on? What was that call all about?" And she's like, "I never called you." So she had this anomaly going on around her. And I believe, again, that that was a beta test of this voice mimicking technology. I really, truly do believe that this technology and the machine learning beta tests, while they were developing all of the basically high-tech deep fake plus voice recognition software, recording all of our voices from videos just like this from the Internet of Things, while they were mastering all of that, they were showing us exactly that in the predictive programming, where the original version of the Terminator does the voice mimicking like Sophia, but then the later version with the liquid robot, the shape-shifting robot, then it can do the full-on doppelganger with the voice impersonation.
Hello?
Janelle, it's me.
John?
Yeah. Is everything all right? Are you
guys okay?
Sure, honey. Everything's okay.
Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm fine.
John, it's late. Honey, I was beginning to worry about you. If you hurry home, we can sit down and have dinner together. I'm making
beef stew.
Something's wrong. She's never this nice.
John?
Where are you?
What the hell is the goddamn dog barking at? Hey! Shut up, you worthless piece of shit!
This dog's really barking.
Thought you were gonna tell the kid to get rid of that fucking mutt.
John, honey, it's late. Please don't make me worry. Can we be there? Honey, are you okay?
I'm right here. I'm fine.
Are you sure? Are you sure you're all right?
What's the dog's name?
Max. Hey, Janelle. What's wrong with Wolfie? I can hear him barking. Is he okay?
Wolfie's fine, honey. Wolfie's just fine. Where are you?
Your foster parents are dead.
So, Sophia, do you want to demonstrate just a few bars of the song you sang at Clock and Flap?
Mother? What are you... I thought you were a burglar.
I didn't mean to scare you, darling. I was just getting a snack. Go back to bed. What's the matter? I'll make you a hot chocolate.
Who are you? And what have you done with my mother?
My mother has never set foot in this kitchen in her life, and she certainly never made me a hot chocolate.
And another thing that this type of entity seems to have in common with the nanotechnology is what they were talking about, the parosmia, people who came in contact with this nanotechnology bioweapon, whether under the guise of an original COVID infection or under the guise of the COVID injections, they reported these mental changes. So I made this video, psychosis, parosmia, paralysis, and paradigm shifts. And I put several examples of people in there that experienced parosmia in their own words. And that's what these people with the walking tree encounters were talking about, that stench, that rotting flesh, that horrible stench. Right here, parosmia is a dysfunctional smell detection characterized by the inability of the brain to correctly identify an odor's natural smell. Instead, the odor is typically a burned, rotting, fecal, or chemical smell. And I talked about in that parosmia video that that's also a characteristic of hauntings, right? People report, oh, the smell of sulfur, the smell of rotting flesh, the smell of sewer, things like that. So this stuff is all connected, in my humble opinion. And as always with the predictive programming, that movie called The Arrival, about alien contact, the arrival of the aliens on Earth and all that. These are the aliens. This is the picture directly from the movie. And clearly, this is what I was talking about. They make them out to be octopus-like. I mean, really, they also look kind of like trees, like tree trunks with the roots, you know? But they moved around in the movie. It was very ambiguous behind the screen, but they moved around sort of like an octopus, and they shot out this ink like black goo. That was their communication, was through this black goo that they shot out. And I call it black goo instead of just ink like an octopus, because after they shot it out, then it would form into things. It would form into symbols and letters, and that's how they communicated with the military and stuff. Here's the cover art for that movie if you don't know which one I'm talking about. But yeah, that's the one that comes to mind for me anyway when I think about shape-shifting aliens. A couple of other movies that come to mind would be The Fog. There's even that old movie, The Green Fog, which ties back into what we were talking about at the very beginning of this. And then, of course, The Mist. Stephen King wrote that, wasn't that by Stephen King? But anyway, inside the mist, again, you have this sort of tentacled octopus-like creature coming out of the mist in some of the versions. So that's just a little bit of the predictive programming that I can think of right off the top of my mind. It's getting late, and my son came down and wanted me to make him some late night macaroni and cheese. So I'm going to go do that. And it's probably a good time to wrap this up anyway. And I will put the other two creatures in their own video. I'll do shape-shifting vampires and the immortals together because those two subjects go together. I don't know if I could call them cryptids, but subjects. Those two topics will go together. So I'll make a video just about shape-shifting vampires and the immortals, tying into all of this technology and stuff. And we will just leave this one where it is. Okay, I'm off to the kitchen for now, and I will talk to you guys again soon. God bless you and your families.